Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. I'm Greg Chris. We welcome you to the show again here on Wednesday night. Always look forward to bringing the show to you. We think we've got another good show. We're focusing more on basketball tonight than anything, but we do have some football news for you as well. Before we get started, we want to always say we'd like for you to like and subscribe on YouTube. That helps us out and helps us to continue to bring you the content that we are able to bring you. So please jump on there, give us a like and subscribe. Let folks know that they can do that as well. Don't necessarily have to watch. You just need to like and subscribe us. And that goes a long way. I want to welcome or wish everyone happy Valentine's Day. I know Frank's lovely wife, Kathy, who I'm sure got some nice roses today. Happy Valentine's to my beautiful wife, Jody. Probably watching back home. We're apart, but we're together always. So happy Valentine's Day, Jody. Also want to give a shout out to one of our viewers and good friends, Kelly McCourt, who is sick and out of action just a little bit. I think he'll probably be commenting some tonight, but having some health issues. We want to wish him the best and speedy recovery. And one other thing, right before we came on, we were discussing the tragedy that occurred in Kansas City today at the end of the Super Bowl parade. Our wishes out to all those families. And I know that doesn't do a thing to help them heal or to deal with this kind of foolishness, but it's all we can do. And we hope that our government would step in and do something at some point, we hope. But we will send our best wishes to those folks in Kansas City. A lot to talk about tonight. We witnessed another tough night for the Mountaineer basketball team Monday night. Tough going for them. We're going to talk about that a little bit here in just a few minutes with Daryl Prue, who always joins us each week to discuss the Mountaineer basketball program. We had a nice talk with him today. Daryl couldn't be with us tonight live, so we recorded him earlier today, and it was an awesome interview. He does a great job with his analysis and then with his ideas. Very good stuff. So I think you'll enjoy that. Mickey Plumley will join me and Frank here in just a little bit, and we'll talk some Mountaineer football as well. And we've got a few things going on with that we wanted to look at with the Big 12 and that sort of thing. Frank will tell you more about that later on. All right. With that all being said, I want to move on now to our interview with Daryl Prue. Again, we interviewed Daryl today to get his insights on the Mountaineer basketball team and the program as it stands right now. So, Frank, if you want to go ahead and throw that interview to Daryl, we'll get started on that. Maybe a little awkward while I sit here.
We do each week. We are joined by Mountaineer basketball great Daryl Prue to discuss the Mountaineer basketball team as we do each week. And I tell you what, Daryl, watched them again. I told my brother one of the hard things about us talking about the Mountaineer basketball team is I have to watch them. They're hard to watch sometimes. And I think this week, Monday night against TCU is no different. They got beat 81-65, and it was a mess from the beginning. And I know you've got some points here we'll look at in just a minute, but some of the things that stuck out to me was the number of turnovers we had at the times we had those turnovers. I know one time, we were down 6, and I looked down and looked back up. And we were down 12. We turned the ball over 2 times in a row, gave up 2 threes, and just like that, the ball game was over. I think the turnovers were critical. I thought our shot selection was poor. Our shooting percentage was not good. And one of the things I noticed, too, is that TCU got 10 more shot opportunities than we had. Of course, that's attributed a lot to the turnovers. But, you get more shots than the other team, your chances of winning go way up. And I just thought there were a number of things, again, wrong with our performance. Stuff we've been talking about since we started talking about this. But, again, you have some points we'll look at here in just a moment. But get your thoughts on Monday night's game.
Shooters are shooting. They're putting their hand up, but if guys at that level can shoot, you don't let them shoot. You drive them off the line, and that's not what they're doing. They're just they're halfway. They're closing out too short. They forgot about Sumnick. They playing that, and they forgot about Sumnick. And when they were winning, Sumnick was playing well. You know what I mean? Like, you got the guy you gave him a lot of money to, but when you beat Kansas, Sumnick had a good game. When you beat Texas the first time, Sumnick had a good game. You can't forget about the guys who's winning for you, then because other guys coming back who hasn't done anything yet. You work them back in. You just don't forget about the other guy, and I think that causes some dissension on the team too.
I won't say lack of effort, but when they close out, like you said, they just put their hand up and don't really try to contest the shot or anything. Like you said, a good shooter pays no attention to that. And we're a little slow on those closeouts. And then, like I said, when we do get there on the closeout, it's just like we're not even attempting to make the shot difficult. We're making it easy on them. And I think the shooting percentages. I think they shot almost 50% from 2-point range.
Yeah, they shot 40. They shot 48%, like almost 50%, only 3 shots off, and they shot 30% from the 3-point line. The TCU hit 6, but it seemed like they hit 16.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I guess sometimes when it happens in certain parts of the game, it doesn't matter what at the end of the game you're already losing by 20. It doesn't matter.
So I felt like I can help you, and I was watching us lose.
I
was going to say, as we were watching that, Greg, it reminds me. In fact, there was a lot of back noise there because Daryl was at school. Was the fact that, and you talk about it later with Daryl in the interview, that you were a coach and a player. He's a player. He's coached, and you just, as a fan, expect to see a well-oiled machine out there. And the reality is that we're realizing how difficult it is to get guys coming in and playing together at this level. It is very difficult. I mean, one of the deceptive things about basketball, maybe even more so than football, is that they make it look so easy. And it's not so easy. It's not easy at all. And so, boy, I'll tell you what, it's just difficult, difficult to watch.
Yeah, and I think, some of the things Daryl and I talked about, we were talking about the closeouts and contesting the shots and all those things. That's effort. That's effort thing.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people want to point the finger and say, well, it's the coach's job to get the effort out of them. Well, there's only so much a coach can do. And I know, well, bench him. Well, who are you going to put in if you bench him? You got somebody else doing the exact same thing. So really, I think right now, and I think it stems a lot from, the beginning of the season when you had a certain group of players. Then you had other players that got eligible, came in. Then I think there was some chemistry issues there, and I'm not so sure that they're all in.
Yeah.
And you just watch, and it just looks like an effort thing. It really does, and which is sad because that is hard to watch. And I can take a lot of things, and I always told my players this. I can withstand getting beat. I can stand losing. It happens. But I can't stand not giving effort, not trying. And I see a lot of that. It's really disturbing, I think.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to the next part of the clip.
I won't say lack of effort, but when they close out, like you said, they just put their hand up and don't really try to contest the shot or anything. Like you said, a good shooter pays no attention to that. And we're a little slow on those closeouts. And then, like I said, when we do get there on the closeout, it's just like we're not even attempting to make the shot difficult. We're making it easy on them. And I think, the shooting percentages, I think they shot almost 50% from 2-point range.
Yeah, they shot 40. They shot 48%, like almost 50%, only 3 shots off, and they shot 30% from the 3-point line. The TCU hit 6, but it seemed like they hit 16.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess sometimes when it happens in certain parts of the game, it doesn't matter what at the end of the game you're already losing by 20. It doesn't matter.
But you talk about the percentage at 48%, and then you look at the shot attempts, and they had 10 more shot attempts. So they had 10 more shot attempts, and they shot 10 percentage points better than us from 2-point range. That's a big gap right there, and that's a big difference. And the defense on their side, it seemed like our shots. I said shot selection early on, but a lot of contested shots. And I don't know if you'd call it, I saw some poor shot selections, but also a lot of contested shots where they actually defended tough, and we had to shoot over, and that was tough on us. And I thought, I didn't think we handled that very well at all. And like I said, I don't know that all was shot selection, but it was, that defense was clamped down pretty good on us and made our shots difficult.
Yeah, I think it's easy to scout West Virginia because of the tendencies of the guys, because there's not a lot of stuff they do offensively I don't think they have a lot of creativity, individual one-on-one players. There's no post play, so it's very easy to game plan against them defensively because they don't have anything that's tricky. They don't have no backdoor stuff. The pick and roll stuff is is basic. But as far as a one-on-one guy getting you a bucket, last year they had Stevenson. He was streaky and he got going. Battle sometimes he'll give you a game. The next game he might not do the same thing. So it's you could game plan very well against them because of the lack of creativity on offense.
Yeah, just seems so limited, and I think that's a big part of the struggle. You had said several points we wanted to talk about the team and what needs to happen and how we move forward. And so, Frank, if you'll put those up, we'll kind of go through them one at a time and let Daryl talk about these points.
Yeah, what we're going to go into now is, Greg, we asked Daryl to move from talking about the here and now. We're going to do the same thing with football in a few minutes and take the long view. What does the program need to do? Sort of Humpty Dumpty back on the wall, because this is frustrating for everyone involved. This is not the kind of Mountaineer basketball that has defined WVU. So, and he did a really good job. One of the things about Daryl I think we all respect, I know you do, is that not only a good player, obviously, Hall of Fame player, but he has a real grasp of the game. And I'm here to tell you, you know this. There are a lot of good basketball players who do not have a good grasp of the game. And that's why you don't see a lot of them as coaches. And when you do, sometimes they're not very good. But conceptually and operationally, and from a teaching point of view, Daryl Prue definitely has that. And so he's going to go over 6 or 7 points with you. All are compelling. You and I looked at them. There was nothing on there that we said, where did Daryl come up with that?
Right.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, he does have a good grasp, and he's talking about the offense and the creativity and those sorts of things. That all stems. Of course, Coach Eilert is young and not real young, but he's fairly new to the coaching game as a head coach for sure. And I'm guessing that with players coming in at all different times, players being hurt, different things, it's difficult to get enough stuff in offensively for them to be, have that creative look. And that's really caused a struggle for them right now. And they're just easy to guard. They really are. And, if you think back to Coach Huggins' time here, one of the constant complaints about Coach Huggins was his offense was outdated. It wasn't creative, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I still think you have to have people that are bought in and putting out the effort. And Daryl's points that he made, to me, were all spot on. I think he has the right idea. So you can jump on to that.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go through the list. Here we go.
First one, fans need to be patient and realistic. It's not going to change overnight. That's right. It's not going to be an overnight fix. There's a lot of problems, a lot of stuff going on, and it's going to take some time.
Yeah, so people think the NIL is the answer. No, that's a high level, high profile AAU program. You wanted West Virginia program was different. You got to build through. You got to build through the recruiting process of high school. You got to be patient. It's going to take 1 or 2, maybe 3 years, and you have to be realistic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what players you bring in here, you still have to be coached well, and everybody have to be on the same page.
Yep. I think you're 100% right there. And again, people just need to be patient, realistic, and like I said, it's not going to be fixed by bringing that transfer portal. I mean, you can get some plug-ins, some gaps and holes with that, but that's not going to be the immediate fix. Your second point here, the program can't continue practices from the last year of Huggins' time at WVU. Again, agreed. I think you got to be yourself, and you got to coach yourself, and you got to be your own person. And I think we've kind of got a little mix of both. I think Josh has tried to do a few things different, but in the end, there's a lot of things. He come up under Coach Huggs, so he's going to do a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, and like even last year, I remember in January the fans were calling for Hugs' head. Now they want him back.
Yeah,
You can't have it both ways.
that's right.
It was a struggle then last year, and we talked about it on Wolfley's program. But you got to let it go. We got to let Hugs be Hugs. When Catlett left, they let it go. Let Beeline do his thing. When Beeline left, Huggins came in and did his thing. So when the next guy come in, we can't be comparing one to the other. We got to be on the same page. And it can't be a Huggins friend and he comes to the game and people are looking at it and they got to be somebody totally different.
Yep, I agree. And you said on the third point, bring in a mature head coach with experience and strong ties to Metro High School coaches, players in WVU's regional footprint. Example, Washington, D.C. And again, I think we can't bring in a young, the next young phenom. We've got to bring in somebody that's got experience, has that maturity to come in and get the program back on track. I agree with you.
Yeah, and you got to understand it's a family. You know what I mean? Like even with the fans, it's a family. So they have to be able to understand the dynamic of West Virginia, the state of West Virginia, and the West Virginia fans.
Right.
As far as the strong recruiting ties, we got you have Ohio, you have Pittsburgh, you got Philly, you have DC, Maryland, Virginia, you got Baltimore, you have all these things that's less than 3 hour drive away, and you're not using those opportunities as we should.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you.
Boy, it all makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he is spot on, and he's had experience on the college level coaching too, and knows what it takes. Went to a Final Four with Georgetown. He understands what it takes, and when you step back and you look at it not as a fan, but you look at it analytically, and you look at what needs to be done. He's pretty spot on. We've got to, we can't depend on, the transfer portal to make all the difference overnight. It just don't work that way. Not for us. And you got to develop these players, bring them in, develop them. And he is correct on all those things. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's thinking like an athletic director too, not just a coach or a player, but an athletic director. And he continues. So let's get back at Daryl.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. And we've got to start hitting those places again. Use the portal. It's number 4. Use the portal to supplement gaps, not as the primary platform to populate the roster. Bring in Big 12 caliber players only. Draw selectively from mid-major programs. Again, I think that's something that we've gotten caught up in before. We try and hope that the portal is going to solve all of our problems. And I agree with you. You got to develop players, get your type of players in there, and then use the portal to supplement those players and supplement the gaps that you have in your roster. And the Big 12 caliber player, again, that's a high level player, and that's what we've got to bring in.
Yeah, I think we've taken players off other teams, especially at the lower levels. We went to Manhattan and Montana and some other schools. Not to say they're bad schools, but you playing against Texas, and you got guys that might be lottery picks going to Texas and TCU and other schools like that. And there's a big difference because some people playing differently in the beginning of the season than they are now is because just the high level of quality and the physicality. Kansas always have 2 or 3 guys that's been talked about being in the top 15 in the draft. So if you don't get the top 15 players, that's cool, but you got to get players that's close, and and if they're not close, you got to develop them. And I don't think, especially with the forwards on up, WVU has not done a great job in the last few years of developing these guys.
Yep. You're right. Focus recruitment on high school players so that players play together for an extended time. One and done senior players, that's a Band-Aid. And I think that's harder to do these days with the NIL, but I think it can be done if you get the right type of people.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, like if you get a young kid and he starts getting better, I'd rather give him more money than somebody on the outside. You know what I mean? Like you can negotiate that a little easier. Some people want to try to steal players from you, this, and I get it, but I think that's going to change soon too.
I think so.
Yes, I think that's going to change soon too. So I think you gotta bring some guy. You gotta bring in some high school guys that can play and give them a chance. And we gotta get some players in there that's the potentially to be there for 2 to 3, 4 years, not just older guys, because that's the lazy way to do it. You just go to the portal and send a money guy to go get them. You know what I mean? And that's not really doing your work as a coach to see what kind of guys you're getting.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before. When you see these teams in the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, Final Four, that you've never seen in there before, these what they call lower level mid-major schools, you see those guys in there and they talk about all these upsets and everything, but then you look at their roster and they've got 4 guys who are 5th-year seniors and they've played together forever. That's why they're so good. And I think there's a lot to that. And I think that's the recipe for success if you look back just over the last couple of years.
Yeah, my introduction to what's going on here a couple of years ago, I always follow recruiting on rivals.com. And I shouldn't be laughing, I went to the West Virginia page and there were no names. And I said, well, that must be a mistake. What I didn't realize at the time was Huggins and the staff they were going all in on the portal. And, we're seeing, the great coach out of Colorado in football doing the same thing. We're going to look at some of the data in a few minutes on the football side where they're just not recruiting much at the high school level and going all portal. But I think Daryl's right. And I know you agree. Lead foot can't be portal. Portal is to supplement, to fill in gaps, and also where you're getting those players from. I mean, Hunter Dickinson went to Kansas, but he was at Michigan, a proven, major college player.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you look at the big time programs, Kentucky, North Carolina, folks like that, they can get the caliber of player in where they can bring 5 of those top 5, 10, 15 players in the country. They can bring them in to their program, of course, and be successful. I think I can do that if I can get those players. But when you're at any other school, and that's probably 90, 95% of the other schools, it's hard to do that. And I think this past year with West Virginia, and that was the plan up here, was to throw some money into this portal thing and grab some of these players, try to get as many good players as we could, and see if we couldn't get Huggins a championship. And, it may or may not have worked. Who knows for sure? We'll never know for sure. But when you look again, like I said earlier, when you look again at these Elite Eights, Final Fours, and you see these teams in there that you're not used to seeing, and they go on and on and on about, this major upset, this 13 seed beat this 3rd seed, and on. They talk about these upsets, and I'm not so sure those are always upsets, because you've got teams, those lower level teams that have had the same guys for 4 or 5 years in their program, and they're really good. And, they play well together and they're talented. I'm not so sure those are always upsets. I mean, you can go out there and grab 4 or 5 players that you think are good and put them together. They may not be worth a darn together. But when you got guys that's been playing for 4 or 5 years together and they mesh and there's chemistry, they can be really good. And that's what I see. You see that happening a lot. That's what West Virginia will have to do.
Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's continue.
This last point here, you could probably obviously speak to it a lot more than I can. I value all the WVU basketball alumni, draw and alumni for help in recruiting, links to high school coaches, appoint them as staff members. So I'll just let you speak on that. You have a better grasp than I do on that.
Yeah, last few years, I've been trying to get on staff for development, this and that. I have a lot of ties down this way, and I get to work with a lot of different people, but you have a chance if I'm here. Or Luca Garza if I'm here. You know what I mean? Because I was working with them since they were so young. Or the big fella, Eric Reeby, that I brought to the staff, of a day. And I have experience. But it feels like, and I don't know from a fact, and I heard the rumors, Hugs didn't appreciate us. The guys that did not play for him. If you notice, if you look at the practice facility, it's all his guys. You know what I mean? What about What about Lester Rowe, Dale Blaney? You know what I mean? Like they on there a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it skips. It skips all the way towards him. Even with we went to the when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, it took him. people who played for Hugs that then people after me that was going in, and it seemed like it was a disconnect or something was going on, and I know what it is. I'm not going to say it publicly, but that has to stop. We all played at WVU. We all are, grateful for our time there. We want the program to be successful, and as far as they don't have to hire me. I understand that, but give me a shot and let me know, see what I can do. I mean, the program, they wanted me there as a player. You know what I mean? So, I want to come back. I want to help. I was at Georgetown. I did go to the Final Four. I tried to come back to West Virginia before when Beeline got the job, and I was turned down. You know what I mean? So, there was opportunities, and Hugs did call me back and say he was moving up Josh and this and that. But sometimes you need some fresh blood. You know what I mean? And sometimes you need somebody who can speak the mind that knows what they know and not just be yes men. And I think sometimes a lot of these coaches, they want people not to challenge them or not to agree with them. They want everybody to agree with them. But sometimes as we saw the last 5 years, things have been a little rough at West Virginia. It hasn't been rosy enough where we call them for the guy back who was having a rough half, you know what I mean? Before Josh had the job, and Josh was put in a terrible situation, you know what I mean? Like almost a no-win situation. You know what I mean? Like he got some good victories on his resume. But the consistency, because the program is not consistent right now, and it's not his fault. Right. It's not Josh's fault. You know what I mean? Like he's done a lot better job than what people think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, he's. For what the situation was, he's done pretty well, I think.
The thing that strikes me about that, and our dear friend Dale Wolfley always talked about it. He said, one thing is criticism, and oftentimes that will come off as destructive communication. But what Daryl's doing there is that he's giving a critique. He's analyzing because he cares about the program. And I think that is extremely important. And another thing that Dale always talked about, and he was really hammering this before the season started in football last year, was culture, 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 culture. What kind of culture do you want? Because success spawns out of positive cultures that are deep. And what Daryl's saying is that in WVU basketball, evidence suggests we need an upgrade in the culture of the program. Now, some people are going to say, "Oh, that's a criticism." Look, we all want WVU to succeed. The question is, how does it do that? Simple as that.
Yeah, and I think listening to Daryl, I mean, obviously there's been some problems. Obviously, you can tell that. And I don't think he's the only one that has voiced concerns over this, this disconnect of a whole era, really, and the exclusion of that era. I don't know what's behind it all. I don't have any ideas, no insights whatsoever. But I do know there's obviously been some problems. I mean, there's no reason, like Daryl said, for and I don't know if this was in there or not, but Gail Catlett, when him and Daryl went to the Kansas game, Daryl had to walk Coach Catlett around to see his picture because he didn't know it was in there, and there was no ceremony, there was no anything. Just put the picture up. That's not good. I mean, that's not the way you build culture, and that's not the way you everything is built on foundations, and each block that's laid needs to be shown its importance, and that encourages the next block to do even better. And I don't think they're doing that right now. And I think I mentioned. I think it got cut out there, but I mentioned that hopefully, now, and this is no knock on Coach Huggins, now that he's gone, it feels like it's on the verge of a new era with some new coaches, a new way of doing things. And hopefully it'll be somebody that is more in tune with our past and the legacies that were built before. And they can build on that, hopefully, as time goes on. And again, I'm not saying it's Coach Huggins' fault or anything like that, but things just run a certain way. And once you have somebody for a certain period of time, that's just the way things are, and they stay that way, and nothing ever changes. And now we're getting ready to change, have a big change. And I think, and I hope that some of that is rectified, because people like Daryl, they need a chance. They need to be recognized. He's obviously a bright guy. He was a hell of a basketball player, and he knows the game of basketball and could probably do great things for WVU. So he needs to be a part of that. And you got to make them feel relevant. You got to make them feel wanted and useful, and they'll bend over backwards to do what they can for the university. And so we've got to get to that point in basketball for sure.
Yeah. Well, let's finish up with Daryl here. Here he goes.
Yeah, like he's getting a lot of respect. He's not crying about it. He's not whining about it.
Right.
Sometimes, you work with a guy that long and you come up under him, and that's all you know. That's all you know. And I've seen it throughout my time. You know what I mean? I've seen it with Big John Thompson. I've seen it with guys with Rick Pitino. You know what I mean? Like everybody. There's nothing wrong with emulating those guys, but like at a certain point, you have to be your own, and it's different. You know what I mean? It's different. It's different.
Yeah. And I think your comments about the alumni and that sort of thing. It's it's a special place for all West Virginians, and people who have played there. It's still special to them. And I think when you have that tie and connection, you get a lot of good results just from effort and the desire to be good and the desire to do good things for the university and that sort of thing. So I think it's definitely, and all the major universities around, you watch. That's what happens there.
Right. Exactly. How about this though? How about this? The 19 pictures they put inside the Coliseum, we did not have a ceremony.
Right.
I reached out to someone and asked why. I knew, COVID, but that's 3 years ago. So it's like, some of us are getting older. Coach Cat, the first time seeing it, I had to walk him around the Coliseum when we was at the game so he could see it because the scoreboard was in the way. Like that's not should be the first time he's seeing it. It should be a ceremony.
Right.
That's
right. Yeah.
It should be a ceremony. It's like he got the street name in front of the school, in front of the Coliseum, but like, he got his picture on the wall. He hasn't seen it.
Right.
Right. Like how much, what I mean? Like he's getting older, what I mean? His wife going through things, and we do things, and people who was there when you was doing them are not here no more, and it's not fair. You know what I mean? It's not fair. You know what I mean? Because people hold an animosity towards somebody for whatever reason. They hold an animosity, and we still West Virginia University basketball, no matter what. Only reason I don't have West Virginia stuff on today is because it's Valentine's Day, so we had to wear red. So, but it's who we are. It's like it's about 10 of us down here in DC that played at West Virginia. You know what I mean? And everybody knows it. You know what I mean? Like, I walk in the gym, everybody knows it. But we have to get back to that family atmosphere. You see Duke do it, North Carolina, Louisville. Everybody else does it but us. You know what I mean? So we have to get back.
Yeah, I think the last few years I think has been tough in that regard because of some of the turnover and some of the folks we've had in AD positions and president positions, that sort of thing. And then of course Coach Huggins, I'm sure he had a lot of control over just about everything in the program.
They have it for football. They have they come back. You know what I mean? Like I almost go to the football stuff because my relationship with some of those guys. You know what I mean? We were like brothers. You know what I mean? So and we're like we're sparse.
Yeah, it's I think some of the viewers live and archived might think, boy, this is a lot of trash talk, and it's not that. Both of us have been in administration, and you often don't like to hear that, what Daryl's saying, but then you have to ask yourself, is it true? And can it help us improve the program? And I think, again, the more that Daryl talks, the more about culture. Now, we're going to close off here with a rumor that was running rampant last week. You get into it, and it's really interesting. And then we're going to close off the basketball conversation and bring Mickey in. But here we go with the rumor.
It's hard for us to come down to all the games, but it's easier to get set up a weekend, and you'd be surprised who will show up.
Oh yeah. Well, hopefully some of that grip has been loosened and some of that will change. We can only hope because it needs to change, that's for sure. Daryl, we're out of time, and I know you probably got something coming up here you got to get busy with. So we'll let you go for another Wednesday. And again, appreciate all your insights. Always so great listening to you and your insights into WVU basketball. You do a great job. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Also, to the rumors of me interviewing for a job. I haven't interviewed nowhere. So
we were going to leave that white elephant alone. Huh?
It was a great tweet. I love it. You know what I mean? But keep tweeting out there. Maybe it happen.
That might happen. Yeah. When I saw that tweet, I started sitting there, man, look at this, look at this, look at this. I thought, I'm not about to ask. So anyway, you put that rumor to rest.
I was very surprised, but I'll take the rumor. You never know.
There you go. There you go. You never know, man. Yeah. There you go. All right, Daryl. Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you next week.
I'll see you. Have a good one.
All right. All right. You do the same.
There's Mickey's joined us, and
Hey, Mickey.
At his best, I'll tell you, guys.
Hey, Frank, one more thing I want to say before we move on to football. I didn't mean to steal Daryl's thunder there with the Coach Catlett story and everything. I didn't know exactly what order that was going to come out in, but he is obviously hurting a little bit about some of this stuff, and I'm sure there's others who feel the same way. And I think it's our duty and their duty and everyone who is a fan's duty to let the folks know at WVU, hey, we want to see these guys. We want to hear their stories. We want to know about them. That's what we do here. And, you know how much fun that is and how important it is for us to hear these stories, Mickey's story, Charlie Fisher's story, all these guys' story. We want to hear it and keep those legacies alive. And that's why it's so important to us. And I think Daryl is spot on. We need to hear from those guys as well, so we can keep our push alive. We're going to be joined now by Mickey Plumley. Mickey is on the screen with us, and I think Mickey and Frank will talk a little football. Mickey, good to see you.
Ooh.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Mickey.
You'll have to unmute your microphone. I made a joke earlier, Frank.
How's that? I'm sorry.
There we go.
I'm sorry about that, guys. I had muted myself.
Well,
hey,
we don't think anything about that, Mickey. Earlier, I couldn't get anything to work here, and I said I feel like Mickey right now. So we don't say anything about it.
Well, you're dealing with an offensive lineman too. You got to keep that.
There you go.
It's good seeing you guys again. I really enjoyed that segment with Daryl. That was very entertaining, very educational too.
Yes, yes, very much.
He's doing his Valentine thing tonight, and so we were lucky to grab him during lunch hour. You could hear the kids in the background. We're glad he did it. And I don't know about you guys, but when I was in administration, you would bless the people like Daryl who would I don't want to say speak truth to power, but that's what he does. No one ever claimed that Daryl Prue was an ass kisser. He's you get the truth from him. And Wolf and I would talk about this all the time. He said it takes strong personalities to be able to take that kind of feedback, but you need people like that surrounding you, because that's what people are saying behind the scenes. And I think, as I said earlier, one of the things I like about him and you two guys is that even though you played the game, you think administratively too, in terms of how do you build a program? How do you build a culture? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to use analytics to do it. That's an overused term, but we're just not going to share opinions because we have opinions. I mean, there's a lot of that, and we all have opinions. But the question is, what's the evidentiary base? What are the data? What information do we know that's more fact than simply a perception with respect to not just how WVU is going to do next year, but in the long term? And then the flip side of that, it's not really the flip side, but it's the same coin, is where is the Big 12 in the mix here? And where is the Big 12 going relative to, the future of major college football? Because clearly you can't separate the Big 12's future from West Virginia's future as long as WVU is in the league. So we're going to do that. And either of you want to make any further comments before we get started?
Mickey, you go ahead.
Well, I'm looking forward to the discussion, Frank. As you said, it takes a number of years to build a program. And with all the turmoil that's been going on in the Big 12, it's good to know what the landscape is finally. As who was the outside linebacker for Alabama back in the 50s? I've forgotten his name here momentarily, but he told Paul Bear Bryant, he said, as long as they stay in bounds, I'll get them, coach. Leroy was his first name. Can't remember his last name, but it's good to know what the landscape is of the conference, with the addition of Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, making it a 16-team conference. Then, we know where we're playing, we know who we're playing, and it's good to get the roadmap put together for success, because just as with, I hate to go back to the 1960s era again, Frank, but, it took Jim Carlin and Bobby Bowden 3 years to go from 3-7-1 to 7-3 to 10-1. It takes a while to build your program, and I certainly think we're headed in that direction. And when you take a look at some of these numbers, we've got a hard road to climb, but I think we can get there, because you know what, we're Mountaineers.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with Mickey. I think looking at the landscape, knowing the landscape now, at least for a couple of years, it kind of helps you build that. And I wonder, and I'm waiting on this for the Big 12 and maybe the Big 10, somebody to start communicating. Well, the Big 10's already communicating, but somebody, ACC maybe, to start communicating together as well, just like the SEC and the Big 10, because there's a lot of movement right there that people are not knowing about right now. And, I hope West Virginia, I'm sure we are at the front of that, paying attention, because I think that landscape, even though we know where it is right now, I think in a couple of years, it could be very different.
Could be moving.
Yeah. And I think we all share this. That is that this is not pulling a rabbit out of the hat, as Mickey said. When you analyze what's going on, you can see patterns. You can see patterns that have occurred at other schools, patterns at WVU in the past, patterns in conferences, and that gives you at least a foundation for speculating what the future might be. And so let me put the first slide up. And again, this is interpretive, but it's based on data that we're going to go over, and it's about WVU, and it's about the Big 12, and it's about the broader landscape. And you may or may not agree with this. We're not saying this is going to happen, but we're saying, number one, we believe strongly that WVU should be football competitive in the reconfigured Big 12. That's the 16-team league that Mickey talks about. I looked at the data recently, and WVU now, according to Winsipedia, which follows wins, is ranked number 15th all time among major college football teams in terms of wins, 783. Number 15. Now, what's interesting about that is it's WVU is the only Big 12 reconfigured Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma were in there, but the only program in the reconfigured Big 12 to be in there. That leads to number 2, losing Texas and Oklahoma from the conference to the SEC. Big 12 has lost teams before, the Big 8 before that. But these two have a negative impact on the Big 12 standing among the major conferences. Two of the reasons that are connected is the number of fans. And I looked this up. Tony Altimore, who's been on the show, is the source. And that is between the two, Oklahoma and Texas, they have almost 11 million fans that are now going to be in the SEC. And we're going to look at finances in a few minutes. Texas and Oklahoma are always, most recently, certainly in the top 10 in terms of revenues. Now, every major conference has brand names. USC and UCLA were in the Pac-12. We know that Alabama, Georgia, LSU are the brand names in the SEC. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State in the Big 10. And what we have now in the Big 12 is we do not have that national gargantuan brand name. But the good news for WVU is that our fan base will rank number 1, and we're going to see that. We're going to put up a slide in a few minutes after I finish the introduction that reinforces that new data. And only Colorado is there with us. They have a lot of eyeballs around Colorado, but they're not necessarily long-term fans. I have a lot of friends, people of color, who are watching Colorado football, many of them for the first time, because they're enthralled with Coach Prime. They want him to be successful. They view him as a major talent. and so they're following Colorado. But West Virginia has a large long-term fan base. Number 3 is important in terms of intro. The data we're going to see tonight are strongly in one direction: greater separation in clout metrics. What I mean by that, fans, media money, revenues coming into schools between the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC. We went from the Power 5 to the Power 4. And I'll end with this, turn to you guys for thoughts. When we think about the Power 5 schools, many of us thought in terms of equivalence, that these were generally equivalent Power 5 conferences. That's just not the case. In fact, we don't have 5 anymore. We now have 4. And the big question now with the Big Ten SEC alliance that has closed out the Big 12 and ACC, are they pushing for a Big 2? And so that's a big question. Now, this is the overview. Number 1, we think that WVU is going to be very competitive. Number 2, losing Texas and Oklahoma puts a big dent in the Big 12 going forward, because none of the schools that have come in, the 8 schools, come close to Texas and Oklahoma for brand. And third, the data are clear over and over, and you're going to see them over and over again. It's rare to see a Big 12 school in the top 20 on these, what I call clout metrics. What do you guys think? I'm going to take that down, and let me know what you think.
Greg, do you want me to go first?
I'll go ahead and start, Mickey, and then let you. I'll
Okay.
have a few things to say, and then I'll let you run with it. Yeah, the metrics obviously are what realists think, and that is it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's terrible to lose Texas and Oklahoma because those are your brand name teams, and it takes away a lot of the clout of the conference, which I think is obvious. It's good for West Virginia because I think it makes us more relevant and more competitive in that conference. But I feel, and I've started to feel this way when Texas and Oklahoma announced they were leaving, that, we're kind of like the Big East West. We're like the old Big East was when we lost Miami, Virginia Tech. That was our clout. And, the Big East really took a pounding nationally, from a viewpoint of the strong conferences. The Big East really got hammered when those teams left. They talked about how weak a conference it was. And I really feel like the Big 12 is going to be in that same boat now. Hopefully some of the teams in there, West Virginia, hopefully that's West Virginia, can rise to the top and become that banner school. That's what we're hoping. But again, I don't know, with this alignment with the SEC and the Big Ten, it makes you think that the Big 12 ACC have to be talking right now. And again, I think the landscape's going to change pretty quickly. So, Mickey, I'll let you go ahead and run with it. That's all I had to say about it.
Well, that's good analysis, Frank. Thanks for bringing those numbers to the table. And, it's a shame in some respects that, the bottom line, and a lot of this comes down to television ad revenue that can be produced by your conference, by the teams in that conference. I mean, clearly the departure of Oklahoma and Texas to the SEC was just monetarily motivated, no other reason whatsoever. And don't quote me on these numbers, but on a relative scale, something like, the teams in the SEC football conference, their share of television ad revenue before the addition of Oklahoma and Texas at the end of the season was about $78 million per team. After the addition of Oklahoma and Texas, they're projecting that TV ad revenue is going to be more like $124 million per team. So you're looking at a 35-40% increase in the revenue that a school can garner by taking advantage of those premier brand known teams coming into your conference. Well, on the other hand, Frank, you said we were 15th in terms of all-time major wins in the conference.
All-time wins among major conference football teams.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but after Oklahoma and with Oklahoma and Texas leaving, aren't we the number 1 all-time winningest program in the Big 12 after their departure?
Absolutely.
I believe we are, aren't we? So that gives us, some claim to being some brand recognition, nationwide. I think one of the disadvantages that we face also as a conference are, the population size of the cities within the geographical territories. You don't really have, something of a Dallas, 2.5 million metro area population, or even in Oklahoma, their fan base probably approaches 4 or 5 million people across the country. And, we're looking, small towns, USA, if you will, Cincinnati, and perhaps who else? Pitt, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh being maybe the two exceptions to that. But the other 14 teams in the conference are basically, mid to small town USA teams. And it's just tough to draw the television audience and produce the ad revenues to keep the conference, going from a monetary standpoint.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad you guys said what you said, because I look at it this way. I think there needs to be a mindset change about Mountaineer sports, football in particular. When West Virginia came into the Big 12, really that was the only choice. The ACC was not an option, neither was the SEC. And so the Big East went kaput. So in 2012, when AD Luck was the AD, it really was the Big 12. And we were never the kingpin of the Big 12. We were competitive, but it was Texas and Oklahoma. But now I think the tables have turned. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for West Virginia not only to be competitive, but to basically move up that scale significantly. I mentioned on Joey's show a couple of weeks ago, I looked at media data for the last season's bowl games. And West Virginia, outside now, we can't talk about the New Year's Six bowls. Those are the big ones. But outside of the New Year's Six bowls, we were right up there in terms of number of people watching. And those weren't just a lot of North Carolina fans. And the chart I'm going to show right now reinforces that. I'm going to put us over here so we can see the two of you. People don't need to see me. This is the top 25 in terms of media, and you'll see West Virginia is in the top 25. And West Virginia and Colorado, those are the two teams in the reconfigured new Big 12. You would expect Alabama, LSU, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, et cetera. And as I said, Colorado's a little bit dicey. That's the reason why they wanted Prime out there, is that Colorado has not had much success other than one co-shared national championship over the years in football. But Prime brings a lot of eyeballs with him. And so those aren't stable data over time. If he were to leave tomorrow, what would it involve? I mean, to see Colorado next to Texas is sort of shocking. But West Virginia has a very, very wide, stable, I'm talking about alumni and folks who live in the state, fan base, and they follow the team. And these are data from Facebook. These are data from Instagram, et cetera, with respect to social media. And so, that makes me feel good that we're not just another team in the Big 12. We really have an opportunity here. And another thing I'm going to show here is what's happening with respect to recruiting. As you know, we all know that the players that we get, obviously that's the raw material. And West Virginia in the conference has been averaging maybe 7th in the conference. The last couple of years, that's gone up. These are the most recent data from Rivals from 2024. The reason we're putting this up is that the signing period was last week, and so this is now stable. And if you look at WVU, you will see that we're 5th in the conference. And just as we've said on this show, one of the new guys to watch is UCF. They have money. Yep. Football is critical for them, and they're number 2. And Texas Tech wants to be that go-to team in Texas. Now the University of Texas is gone. What's interesting here is some of the teams at the bottom. The red are the teams that came in 23. The green are teams that are coming in 24. And you can see that the teams that came in last year are starting to show some upgrade. UCF, BYU, Cincinnati. I'll tell you guys, Houston has been and continues to struggle. You'll see it with the portal as well. But there's another thing I want to share with you compared to this gap between the Big 12 and, let's say, the Big 2. It's the number of 5 stars, a lot of zeros there, very few numbers, the number of 4 stars, and the number of 3 stars. What that is telling you is that, and Daryl talked about this in basketball, how important player development is going to be.
Yeah.
You take these 3 stars and you've got to make them into NFL prospect players, and certainly first string Big Ten players, because you're not going to get a lot of 4 stars. West Virginia has 1 this year, 18 3 stars. The other thing I would point out, and then I'll shut up and ask you guys what you think. The ranks 1 through 16 are Big 12 ranks. The numbers that are in parentheses are where the Big 12 stands nationally. Now look at that. The top Big 12 team in 2024 high school recruiting is Texas Tech, and it doesn't reside in the top 20. It's number 24. WVU is in the mid-40s. And you look at the bottom, the thing that surprises me, I'm shocked over Baylor. And Arizona lost so many of its players and its coach. They're in deep financial trouble at the University of Arizona. I still don't know how they're still being identified as the front runner for 2024. They lost a ton of players, and they didn't bring many in. As you can see, the numbers aren't great. New coach. And you can see Colorado, as I said, doesn't view high school recruiting as important as portal, and that's why they're at the bottom. So again, maybe the biggest takeaway here is West Virginia is being very competitive, better than it's done, in the last couple of years, including recruiting West Virginia kids. And Texas Tech, number 1 in the Big 12, is number 24 nationally. Let me stop there. Thoughts?
Well,
Interesting.
Frank, when you put that graphic up there, I think one thing to me that jumps out is the fact that, and I know those star rankings don't always mean anything, but in a whole conference, you have 2 5-star recruits in the entire conference. I think that indicates, and very few 4 stars, kind of indicates where your conference is at right now. And I think, that's a telltale sign. And again, it looks, eerily similar to the Big East, the way that unfolded, and to me, which is scary. But I think there's enough, name recognition there for schools that have good reputations, et cetera, that it can be brought back to life and be a great conference even without Texas and Oklahoma. I think the making of it is there. I just think the schools got to hold up their end of the bargain, and like I said, that looks bad on the conference with those numbers. Not necessarily bad, but it's surprising to see that a conference that size has only 2 5-star recruits in it. And again, I know those stars don't always mean everything, but it is a measuring stick and something we can look at. And to me, that's bad news.
Well, Frank, as you mentioned, the importance of player development, you just can't stress it enough. When you take a look at 18 3-star rated athletes coming in, I am so pleased that we have a guy at the helm like Neil Brown to lead that effort to get those people and the assistant coaching staffs that he's put together. Because, in some respects, we're a blue-collar team, okay? We have a blue-collar work ethic. And that's represented, I think, by these numbers here as well. We're not, we don't have the pathways of today that we used to have. We don't have, nationally known names in the field, but we've got people that when you clear away the dust at the end of the season, like the freshman tight end that we gave the scholarship to midway through the season, ended up being the number 1 ranked receiver in the country when it came to one-on-one coverage last year. So Hudson, did his job, and he is certainly going to develop more in the future, as are the other players under Neil Brown and his assistant coach's tutelage.
Yeah.
Just got to work with what you got and develop it.
Yeah. And again, you guys are spot on. And along those lines of the mindset change, if I were the commissioner of the Big 12, one of the things I would say is we have the most competitive top to bottom football conference in the country. No one can compare with the Big 12. You don't know who's going to win each week because these teams are close to each other in a variety of ways. And you're already seeing, we'll see it with the portal data. The newcomers are starting to, I mean, this was an upgrade for UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU. And the Pac-12 entries, those are major college teams. The other thing that's going to help us, I think, I don't know how many fans have been following this, is the NCAA is going to vote, not the NCAA, excuse me. The College Football Playoff Committee is going to vote next Tuesday on what they call the 5+7 format for the college football playoff next year. What does 5+7 mean? It means the 5 top-ranked conference teams.
Okay.
Frank, I'm going to interrupt you, Frank, real quick. What that top 5 means is Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan. That's what that means.
It's let me I didn't finish the sentence though. Conference.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Conference champions.
Yeah.
So it can't include Ohio State and Michigan.
Right.
You see.
Right.
Now the 7 is the next best according to ranks. And the committee will decide that. We all know we're laughing here. The committee will decide that. But the point is, I think when you look at the competition issue in the Big 12, I think that positions the Big 12 very well.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Another point, too, that I always like to make is, when you hear, talking heads like we are now, talking about these conferences, and they're always talking about the power of the SEC and the power of the Big Ten. But when you look at those conferences, you see 1 or 2 really good teams, and then the rest are just average, and that gets overlooked a lot because they talk about these powerful conferences. And yeah, you look at the SEC and you see teams like Florida and LSU and all these, but are they really that good? Are they really that much better than WVU, Texas Tech, TCU? You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of it is perception. And unfortunately, those people on ESPN and Fox Sports and all that, their perception is what matters the most, and with the media.
Yeah, and a lot of times what they're doing, they're playing to the viewers. They're playing to the base.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, I think, again, I'm looking at it from a glass, half full perspective. I think this 5+7, hard pressed to not think that the Big 12 champion wouldn't be in there, obviously.
Right.
And then I don't think we're going to see an ACC situation again in the future, particularly with 12 teams. But the other thing along those lines, and I want to bring this up right now, and let me get you guys I can't position you because it's taking the full screen. But what I like about this table is there's WVU again doing very well. This is portal data, and it's from On3, which is the #1 portal analysis. You see transfers in and transfers out. Now, what On3 does is evaluate the talent that's coming in, the talent that's going out, and then gives a rating. And you can see a good number of the Big 12 teams, the talent coming in, even though there may be more coming in, more going out than coming in, is higher rated, just a few. But what's interesting here is Colorado, which was a bottom feeder in the conference relative to high school recruit, is #1 in the Big 12 and #2 in the country. And you can see still a lot of transfers out. They didn't cut it, but a lot of people coming in. But those asterisks there are the 3 asterisks. Iowa State did the best in terms of bringing in talent. And there's Houston again, doing the worst in the conference. But WVU again is doing well, 6th in the conference on the portal, going for needs, filling gaps, #29 in the country. And even though they lost more players than they brought in the kinds of players that they knew or they hope will make a difference. And so what this says, again, from an analysis point of view, is that Neil Brown and staff aren't focusing just on high schools, although that's a primary focus for them, but they're also focusing on the portal, and they know that they have to recruit these players even at the end of spring ball, because the portal opens again right after spring ball. Players are going to be in play again, and the players that are now on WVU's roster may not be there. They may leave, and players that are not on WVU's roster at the end of spring may come in. Many people know I was at Michigan State for a number of years. After spring ball last year, we lost our starting quarterback to Auburn and the star wide receiver to Florida State, Keon Coleman. Yeah. That was after spring ball.
Yeah, and I think with WVU, I think, that's encouraging. I think we've talked about this several times, Mickey included, talking about Neil Brown and his grasp on the portal and the way he's using it seems to be so much better. And, you look at the number of players that went out, 16 of them, I think. But out of those 16, if you think back, who can you remember that left? And not taking away anything from these kids, but only one or two names that were like, oh man, I hate to lose him. The rest of them we didn't really even know. So I think we're this year anyway. We're keeping our core players, our players that play a lot. We've kept those, and then bringing in some to fill the gaps. And I think that's a very encouraging sign for WVU. I think.
Yeah.
Well, and from a conference perspective, guys, very competitive, even though maybe, I got to admit, not on the scale as the Big Ten or the Southern Conference, perhaps. However, when I take a look at these 16 teams, I took a look the other day at ESPN's way too early top 25 projection for 2024. Okay, and we have 5 teams in the conference that are in there. Unfortunately, West Virginia's not one of them. Of course, but that's ESPN for you. But they did choose Kansas, Kansas State, Texas Tech, Utah, and Iowa State to be. I'm sorry, Texas Tech to be in the top 25 next year. So if we beat 4 out of 5 of those teams, it just helps our position that much more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, as far as competing for the conference championship, the biggest competition I see here down the road in the future is going to be the Utah Utes, because they're always tough, always.
Yeah. And let me give you some data to support that. Always looking for evidence. Everybody is lathering over the Pac-12 teams coming in. So I asked a very simple question. How many times have these teams won a Pac-12 championship? Okay. How many has Colorado won? 0. How many has Arizona won? And they joined in 1978? 1.
Maybe 1.
Has Arizona State won? 3. And they came in 1978. The last one was in 2007. Utah has won 2 back-to-back this decade. And so Utah, when again you look at patterns, Utah has the kind of program and feeder system that you would say they have an advantage. Arizona was coming up, but then all of a sudden with their financial difficulties and their coach leaving for Washington, it's just amazing. And I went back and looked at how many conference championships that Colorado won when they were in the Big 8. Very, very few. And so as a consequence, I think the aspirations for Colorado are phenomenal because of Prime. But I think Mickey's right. I would worry about Utah. They stumbled a bit last year. We'll just have to see whether that will be in the future. We're rounding third, not using a football analogy, heading for home. But I want to show one that I think is very important here. And let's bring this up. These are the numbers. And I'll just show one more slide after this, but I think this speaks volumes. This is from USA Today on readily available data that all public major colleges must submit. In fact, not just the major colleges, about 240 athletic playing public universities must report every year. And I've organized this by conferences and then schools in the Big 12. And the middle column is I think speaks volume. This is athletic revenue rank according to USA Today, and I've looked at other sources and it's the same. And out of the top 10, and then out of the top 20, those are the first two columns. How many teams are from the SEC in terms of money coming in? How many are from the Big 10? How many are from the ACC? How many are from the Big 12? In the top 10 revenues, SEC has 7, Big 10 3, none, either ACC schools or Big 12. So that means the SEC and the Big 10 have significant advantages. And what's amazing is that right-hand column that is the biggest unknown to the average football fan. The myth is that football pays for everything. And the reality is football doesn't pay for everything at most universities playing major sports in this country. Having said that, of the top 10, 6 of those 10 schools pay for everything in their athletics by their athletic revenue. And the highest on the top 10 is Alabama, and it's only 5%. Okay? Now, if you go to the next 10, which means the top 20, 4 SEC, 3 Big 10. Now you've got a few ACC schools, but here we go again, fellas. Money talks. The Big 12 has no schools in the top 20 in athletic revenue as of last year. The new data will come out in the spring. Okay? And what we see is in this, as we go down to the conference schools, you'll see that the percentage coming from subsidies, what are subsidies? That's transfers from the university general budget to athletics, and it's student fees. You can see that those numbers, many of them, are in double figures and go all the way down to Cincinnati and Houston. And look at Houston. Over half of its athletic budget comes from a combination of student fees and transfers from the University of Houston General Fund. Now, West Virginia, I think, is doing very well here. We're 45th in the country in terms of overall revenues. We're right there with Rutgers, Maryland, and Georgia Tech. I think that's generally good company, particularly Maryland and Georgia Tech. And only 8% of the Mountaineers' athletic budget comes from the general fund and student fees. That's low when you compare to the other schools. Now, these data are from when UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, and BYU were in the group of 5 conferences, the American. That's going to change because they're going to get their slice of the big $12. So that will go up. But again, this is another thing I talked at the beginning. The gap between the SEC and the Big 10 and the ACC and the Big 12 is there. And I could show you slides on viewership of games, et cetera, but you catch the drift. Let me just show one more here. Let me see. Implications. The last one we'll show right now. If I can get it up there. Yeah. What is the future going to bring? Then we'll have a closing discussion and bid everyone a night. Future changes include possible moves made by the newly formed Big Ten SEC Alliance. We don't know what's going to happen. Those guys are keeping things very close to the vest. They'll announce at some point. The NCAA may do something, and the Congress is still talking about regulating nil and other regulatory actions. No one's smart enough to be able to say this is exactly what's going to happen. We're going to find out. Will the Big Ten and SEC add more schools? If I had $10 for every program that I've watched about college football where people are speculating, this school is going to go to this conference, the conference is going to add this school, and I keep on asking, What's your evidence? Why would they want you? How much money are you going to bring in? What's your fan base? A lot of speculation. WVU will end up in the SEC. And I would ask the question, you have to look at it from the SEC's perspective. What would WVU bring to the SEC? You've got to look at it if you're a conference commissioner, not as an average fan. And then finally, are we headed in the future from a two-tier football bowl division substructure where we had the power conferences and the group of 5 conferences to a 3-tier structure where you've got the Big 2, then you've got the Big 12 and ACC, the group of 5. I don't have the answer, but I think given the data and where things are going, it's something to really think about. I don't think there's any question about it because the financial data that I shared, you're not going to see major changes in that portrait. Everybody's trying to generate more revenue, but generating gobs more isn't necessarily a sustainable option. You're trying to basically, paddle the boat. So what do you guys think as we close up here?
Well, I think, when you mentioned some of the future changes that may come, Congress, I think is going to be involved because, all these Congress people's constituents are football fans and they want something done about this NIL and the problems it's created, even though, I think all of us agree that that revenue should be shared with the players. The NIL, though, has kind of gotten out of control, some of the stories we hear, and I think Congress wants to do something about that. I'm not saying that's a good idea. I'm just saying it's probably going to happen. The NCAA, I think, and this is my opinion, I don't know anything outside of what I think, but I think the NCAA probably won't really mind football jumping out there with the Big 2 and maybe going out rogue on their own. The NCAA makes their money off the Final Four in basketball in that tournament. The NCAA March Madness is where they make their money. And I know they make money off of football, but I don't think with the headaches that are coming in football, I don't think they have any answers. They're so, retroactive. They wait till a problem gets out of control before they try to do something about it. And I think, the problems that they feel are created by football are maybe problems they don't necessarily want to deal with or don't have answers for. And as long as they got that cash cow with the March Madness, I think they're perfectly fine with whatever football wants to do, to be honest with you. And that's just my opinion. I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I just have a feeling.
Well, no doubt, March Madness is the premier attraction there. No question about it. I'll be glued to the TV. I don't typically watch college basketball until March Madness rolls around. Frank, you've got so many numbers here tonight. I really appreciate all the research that you did here. I'll give you a couple of numbers that I like. The first one is, when you ask in the future, next 2, 3, 4 years, what would WVU bring to the SEC? Well, having lived down here in SEC territory for almost 30 years now, I'll answer it this way: every bit as much as Vanderbilt, if not more. Okay, and I could see that replacement happening one of these days. Okay, and then the second number that I'll point out, you can tell me how the depth of my research here. One of the things I'm real happy about next year is on college football game day, broadcast at 9 a.m. Eastern time on ESPN next year. We're going to have 40% of the seats on the floor because we're going to have both Pat McAfee and we're going to have Nick Saban on that 5-person panel. Now, that should do a heck of a lot to put West Virginia on the map, I do believe. McAfee did everything he could, and with Coach Saban being on there next year, we should get all kind of publicity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think this is the time to wear those West Virginia shirts, wear the garb. Mickey asked that we would put up the schedule next year. And, you know, I was excited last year. I know Greg and Mickey, you were too. I'm more excited this year because I think, again, the takeaway for me of analyzing all these data is that this is not West Virginia coming into the Big 12. This is an opportunity for West Virginia to seize the Big 12. I think we've got a great opportunity in that Penn State game. We all know looms large. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if that November 30th game could come down for which one of those teams is going to make it into the Big Ten championship. When you think about it, we got the closest thing, I think, in the conference to a Patrick Mahomes at quarterback.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
And so,
Exactly right.
yeah, I'm not worried about West Virginia football. A little more concerned about Big 12. I know you guys are too, and I think the comments from the viewers tonight emphasize that. But we've got to keep it going, and we're going to do our analysis of each of these teams that we're going to play. But it's you say it very well, Mickey. It's a great. Go ahead, finish it. It's a great day.
It's a great day to be a Mountaineer, no matter where you may be.
There you go. All right. And Frank, you make sure you keep that graphic with the schedule. We'll get through that schedule and talk a little bit about it as we move on through. I know we just put it up there tonight for people to see, but we'll get back to that and talk some analytical stuff about some of these other teams that we're playing and what we expect to happen. It'd be fun to talk about throughout the summer. And we want, before we go, we want to remind everyone next week's show, we're going to do a tribute show to our good friend Dale Wolfley, who passed away way too early this past year, and we want to do a little tribute show to him. We'll have his wife on, and that is, of course, Kathleen Mansfield Wolfley, and some other folks that worked with Dale on his show and played with him and that sort of thing. We hope to have as many of those folks as we can squeeze on for that remembrance show. So we hope you'll tune in and join us for that next Wednesday. Guys, been a fantastic show. We made it through, and we were the special guests. That's pretty cool when we can do that. So I appreciate you guys and all your input and all your insights. Always good stuff. Frank, thanks for all the graphics. Really helps explain things and gives you a different perspective on it. Really is good to look at. So we appreciate that. We appreciate everyone for viewing. We appreciate all the likes and subscribes out there on YouTube. We hope you'll continue to do that. We hope you'll join us next Wednesday night, same time, for the Mountaineer Locker Room, then and now. Good night, everybody.
Good night.